January 2008, we returned to Southeast Asia for the fourth time. The trip started in Singapore, where we spent a few days, then on to Ho Chi Minh City, also known as Saigon. Next, we traveled to Cambodia to see Angkor Wat and Siem Reap, and then to the rural Cambodian village of Prato to distribute goods purchased with money from our Cambodian Village Fund. Next, it was on to Laos. We flew to Paxi in southern Laos, then to Vientiane, the capital of Laos, and then to Luang Prabang, a UNESCO World Heritage City. After Laos, we went to Hanoi for a few days, and then returned home after a one-night stop in Singapore. Singapore, squeaky clean, modern, efficient, beautiful, westernized. It's also sometimes a little tacky, and boy, was it hot and humid. Many cultures, Indian, Chinese, Malay, British, played a part in Singapore's interesting past. Today, Singapore is loaded with amazing museums that celebrate its history. We spent half a day on Sentosa Island hiking and going to the museums. The Images of Singapore Museum celebrates Singapore's history and diversity with multimedia and robotic wax figures. Some look pretty real.
Such a happy day! New bride and groom. He get lucky. Ha ha ha.
Fort Siloso, also on Sentosa Island, overlooks Singapore Harbor. It is beautifully restored. Many of the exhibits are about the Japanese invasion and occupation of Singapore during World War II. The Singapore Zoo is set in a wonderful lush rainforest. A separate part of the zoo is open for the night safari. Ho Chi Minh City, or Saigon as most people call it, was quite a change from orderly Singapore. It's polluted, congested, frantic, and fun. We began our sightseeing at the 1960s-style Reunification Palace. It served as South Vietnam's White House during the 1960s and early 70s. One of the most interesting parts of the palace was a communication center in the basement where the South Vietnam leaders conducted the war effort. Our next stop was the Jade Pagoda, built at the turn of the 20th century. We made quick stops at Notre Dame Cathedral and the old French colonial post office. The massive Bin Tong Market has about everything you want for sale, including lots of helmets because of the new requirement that all motorcycle riders wear them. Shalom, Saigon's Chinatown, never assimilated into Saigon's culture. The signs are in Chinese, the residents are Chinese, and don't venture out. We walk through the Ben Tai Market, a vast wholesale market that sells every kind of item. Once the deal was done, the goods were piled high on motorcycles or bikes or any means of transportation and hauled away. Quite a distribution center. Block after block in Shalom are lined with Chinese medicine shops that resembled old-fashioned pharmacies, but with things we would never see in the West. We stopped at the Tian Hao Pagoda, Our Lady Temple, dedicated to the heavenly goddess of the sea. It was originally built in 940 AD and remodeled over the centuries. Saigon is not a very walkable city, but with a good map and a willingness to cross the busy streets, walking can be an adventure. We walked from our hotel to the Ho Chi Minh Museum, the Backpackers District, and through a park. We arrived at the War Remnants Museum, which tells the story of the American War. There is also an exact replica of the tiger cages the French used to house and torture Vietnamese during French colonial rule. The next day we flew to Siem Reap, Cambodia to see Angkor Wat. Angkor Wat is the largest religious monument in the world. This beautiful temple is an example of Khmer art at its finest. Built in the 12th century, it's famous for its bas-reliefs portraying ancient Khmer legends. The bas-reliefs, which stretch around the central temple for over a half-mile, depict important Khmer battles and legends. There has been quite a bit of restoration work on the temple, but Khmer Rouge bullet holes are still visible. In the 1990s, archaeologists from India used ammonia to clean some of the towers and ended up severely damaging them. Next door to Angkor Wat sits Angkor Thom, one of the largest of the ancient Khmer cities. Built shortly after Angkor Wat, it was a walled city with a population of 1 million. We entered through the ornate south gate. Angkor Thom was where the Khmer royal family and upper echelon lived. The rest of the population lived outside the wall. During the 12th and 13th centuries, Angkor Thom was as grand as any of the European cities at the time. The beautiful bas-reliefs at Angkor Thom depict daily life in the city. Artisans Day Angkor helps young Cambodian artists find work in their home villages and provides them with a trade. It also helps preserve the Khmer culture. Crafts include woodworking, stone carving, painting, and lacquer. Siem Reap has a beautiful new national museum with many relics from Angkor Wat and displays of ancient Cambodian history. Our last stop in Siem Reap was the lively old market. The main reason for our trip to Southeast Asia was to visit the little Cambodian village of Prato near Battambang. A couple years ago, we set up the Cambodian Village Fund to collect money for the village. We took a boat from Siem Reap down the Tongli Sap River. We passed by floating villages and riverbanks lined with houses on stilts. Our boat provided a front row seat to life along the river. The 3 to 5 hour boat ride turned out to be almost 7 hours. Never boring, but our legs started to go numb around hour 6. After a night in Battambang, Mon Swan, our Cambodian friend who lives in San Diego, and her daughter Mao, who lives in the village, picked us up at the hotel. Our first stop was the open-air market in the center of Battambang. Next, we headed to the village, about 45 minutes away. Although we didn't know it at the time, the school was preparing for our arrival. The teachers set up tables, while the school children rehearsed lining up in rows by size and gender. To keep the kids busy, the teachers had them do some calisthenics. Just before our car arrived at the school, the children lined up along the road leading to the school. As our car pulled up, we saw 720 cheering school children on both sides of the road. Bill and I were weak-kneed and overcome with emotion as we got out of the car. The school's headmaster, teachers, and town dignitaries bowed, greeted us, and put orchid leis around our necks. They handed Mon Swan a bouquet of flowers. We walked through 100 yards of excited, beautiful children. They came in a range of sizes, from 1st to 6th graders. Most of them were wearing their old, worn school uniforms that had been passed down from bigger brothers and sisters. There were 5 or 6 long tables piled high with gift packages purchased with money from our Cambodian Village Fund. Each package contained a notebook, flip-flops, a pen, and a school shirt. Each child also received a roll and a bottle of water. The headmaster, the mayor, and Monsiwan all gave speeches. Bill and I handed out packages to each grateful child who politely thanked us. The kids dived into their rolls. They were hungry and the rolls were a real treat. After the celebration, the kids left for home, each carrying their gifts. Then we gave the teachers each a shirt. After the last child left, a group of village leaders, along with Monsiwan, walked us out to an open field they want to reclaim for a new school building. The cost to drain the land is $3,500. Our village needs a new school building, so I guess we have to find a way to build one. We walked to Mao's house. Monsiwan refers to it as Hotel Mao. On the way, we stopped at the local temple. When we arrived at Hotel Mao, the ground floor was packed with family, village dignitaries, and teachers. Mao and her kitchen crew served up a huge Khmer feast, barbecued chicken wings, my favorite, shrimp, beef, vegetables, and rice with special sauces. Everything was delicious and fresh, made with the meat and veggies we picked up at the market just a few hours earlier. After lunch, Mao's son scurried up a palm tree to gather coconuts. We drank the coconut milk with straws. After the guests left, we were off with Monsiwan, Mao, and other family members to explore the village. We headed down the dirt road Monsiwan built years ago, connecting the farms to the main road. An ice cream vendor came pedaling by with his frozen goods. We stopped him to buy ice cream for the kids nearby. Word travels fast, and within minutes, kids were coming from all directions. There was no pushing or grabbing, just little kids standing along the dirt road with melting ice cream dripping down their happy, dusty faces. We stopped at a few farms to say hello. We visited a man in his early 40s who suffered a major stroke a couple years ago. His worried wife was by his side. They have 10 children to feed. Life is really tough for them. We gave them a little money and left with heavy hearts. We learned later the man died shortly after our visit. The sun was very hot, so we went back to Mao's house to relax with her family in the area under the house. Our next stop was southern Laos to spend a couple days at the Kingfisher Eco Lodge. On the way, we stopped at Wat Phu, a ferry boat ride across the Mekong River. Wat Phu, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, is the world's longest operating temple. Built in the 6th century, it is still considered highly sacred by the Laotians in the region. Most of the current buildings, dating from the 11th century, are still awaiting restoration. While we waited for the ferry for our return trip across the Mekong River, we made friends with Miang Miao, an adorable 10-year-old who reminded us of our granddaughter Zion. The Kingfisher Eco Lodge in Champasak is in a beautiful rural setting next to farms and open fields of elephants, water buffalo, and egrets. People come here to relax and enjoy the beauty, but we came to ride mountain bikes and hike. We rode on quiet dirt roads and across streams to Lao Miao, a small minority village.
vào cái biển rồi.
We left our bikes at the village chief's house and then hiked for an hour to a waterfall. After a delicious lunch, compliments of the Kingfisher Eco Lodge, we hiked back to the village, got back on our bikes, and rode to another village to see a celebration of the rice harvest. On our way back to the Kingfisher, we stopped to watch a guy bathing an elephant in the river. We took a short flight to Vientiane, the capital of Laos, a smaller, relaxed town that sits on the northern bank of the Mekong River. We hired a tuk-tuk to take us to the major sites. The first stop was a Sisakat Wat, built in the traditional Thai style in 1818. We crossed the street to see another temple, Ho Phra Keo, built in 1565. Next on the list was Wat Si Muang. Built in 1566, the temple is nice but not particularly interesting except for the very strange statues that dot the courtyard. We went to another Wat where we met a young monk who showed us his school and the large murals depicting the life and times of Buddha. He told us fascinating stories about each painting. Buddha was a weird guy. Phra Tat Luang, our next stop, is 144 feet high and the preeminent stupa in Laos, a national symbol with its image printed on some of the money. It was first built in 1566, rebuilt by the French in 1900, and remodeled by the Laotian people in 1930. Our last stop of the day was Patu Sai, our victory monument, built in 1968. Reminiscent of Paris Arc de Triomphe, it stands on a lovely garden on the main road through town and offers some wonderful views of the capital city. We flew from Vientiane to Luang Prabang in northern Laos. Luang Prabang, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, is at the confluence of the Mekong and Non Con rivers. The Non Con River, across the street from our hotel, is the main recreation center for the kids in town. Luang Prabang has more watts per capita than any other town we've been to. The count is now about 30, down from 70 after U.S. bombing raids. A tradition in Luang Prabang is monks parading through town at daybreak, collecting alms from the people. We got up early to see this spectacle and offer a few alms as well. We climbed 300 steps to the top of Mount Fuji in the center of town. Mount Fuji is covered with Wats and Buddhas and Nagas and crawling with monks. We got panoramic views of the town. Perched on the top of the hill, overlooking the city, was an old Soviet anti-aircraft gun. Our next stop was the Royal Palace, completed in 1909. It was the royal residence until 1975 when the Pathet Lao took control of the country and abolished the monarchy. We took a boat up the Mekong River to Pakao Caves. Along the way, we stopped at a little village known for making whiskey called Lao Lao. From the 16th century until 1975, the king and the people of Luang Prabang made pilgrimages to Pakao Caves as part of the New Year religious celebration. On the way back from the caves, we stopped at a village known for papermaking. We took an amazing 2-day adventure to a tiny Khmu village in northern Laos. It started with a bike ride heading south out of Luang Prabang. Our guide, Vu, led the way. He grew up in a rural village in Laos and knows a lot about village life. We rode for about 15 miles along the Nam Khan River. I enjoyed the views of the river and the rice fields. After about 3 hours on the bikes, we stopped at a small village. There were no restaurants or stores, but lots of kids running around. Vu made a great lunch for us. After lunch, we began trekking straight up a mountain through a tropical jungle, passing local villagers along the way. About 3 in the afternoon, we arrived at the Khmu village of Bon Hue Pang. We followed Vu to our room at the village chief's house. The people and the kids were intrigued by us foreigners. The village doesn't get many visitors. We climbed the ladder to the chief's front door and met the chief and his family. We were dirty from the trek, so we went to the river for a bath. A village woman was washing herself in the river, so I watched how she maintained her privacy with her sarong. I was glad I brought my $3 sarong, especially since I had attracted an audience. After our baths, Bill and I explored the village. The village has no electricity, telephones, water, or sewer system. In fact, there are no bathroom facilities at all. There are no cars or roads. The Khmu are an agricultural society. They grow rice, corn, bananas, sugarcane, and vegetables. Most of the agricultural work in Khmu villages is done communally. The villagers believe that Khmu houses in the entire villages are integrated with spirits of the land, and so the houses in the village are considered holy spaces. Typically, entire Khmu villages are enclosed by fences with 3 or 4 gates. Traditional Khmu houses have 2 rooms, one for unmarried girls and one for the rest of the family. The houses typically have thatched roofs that have to be replaced about every 3 years, so new thatching is always being prepared. The big industry in many Khmu villages is broom making. The villagers gather the tall grass, beat it to remove the seeds, lay it out along the road to dry, and then wrap it around a broom handle, just a plain stick. We watched the villagers sell the broom straw to a guy who came on a motorbike. Another business is basket weaving. The men in the village weave the baskets. They keep some of the baskets and use others for exchange. We saw this boy collecting chickens in a basket. Bill and I walked up a hill to check out the school. Classes weren't in session, and none of the kids followed us up the hill. The 3-classroom building was Spartan at best. Tables and benches wobbled over holes in the dirt floors. The only teaching aid we could see was one worn-out, faded chalkboard. A few of the children's drawings, which appeared to be drawings of the school, were thumbtacked to the board separating the rooms. We wondered how anyone could teach and how the children could learn here. Where were the books, the supplies, even the chalk? I took lots of pictures of the kids. They enjoyed seeing themselves on the camera's LCD display. The only toys we saw in the village were long bamboo poles with wooden wheels attached to one end. The kids pushed and pulled these toys around the bumpy village trail, zooming past the houses and animals. The village had lots of animals. Pigs, ducks, chickens, turkeys, cows, cats, and dogs who barked at us incessantly. As the sun went down, the villagers lit fires and began preparing dinner. 2 chickens gave their lives for our dinner. We also had vegetables and sticky rice. We shared our dinner with a dozen or so guests. We all ate from large bowls with our hands. We woke up with the roosters crowing and the pigs milling beneath our bedroom. After breakfast, we were again surrounded by lots of curious kids. I danced, jumped, and made faces. They laughed at all my silly moves, such an easy audience to entertain. After breakfast, we packed up and climbed down the chief's ladder for the last time. We hiked to another village. This one had 2 different minorities, Khmu and Hmong, living in separate areas. The Khmu build their houses on stilts, and the Hmongs build their houses on the ground. We saw a grinding stone and a blacksmith making tools. The village shaman invited us to join a ceremony that was just starting. The celebration was to thank the dead ancestors of a man who had recovered from a serious illness. The shaman had asked the ancestors to help the man get better, and we were there to witness it all. In the middle of the ceremony, a couple of guys delivered a terrified squealing pig, which, unfortunately for the pig, was sacrificed to thank the gods for the man's return to good health. They prepared and cooked the pig for a big celebration later. The shaman continued the ceremony with more chanting and some jumping. We trekked on over a steep mountain pass and then down into the valley where we passed a remote farming village. We scrambled over another mountain pass and trekked back to a dirt road where our driver was waiting. We drove back to town with wonderful memories of our adventure. We flew from Luang Prabang to Hanoi, our last stop on this trip. A highlight in Hanoi was the beautiful Museum of Ethnology. We meandered out back to explore the examples of houses, communal centers, and tombs from various minority groups. A model of the Longhouse from Akai village is over 40 meters long. The tomb of the Jirai people was my personal favorite. Sexually explicit carved figures encircle the tomb. They were a hoot. We stopped in Singapore on our way home and got to explore the stunning new $1.5 billion terminal. After another 20 hours of travel, we were finally home with memories of another grand adventure.